And so amid the thousands of migrants being rescued from the Mediterranean every week, the subject of worldwide migration is set to come up at the upcoming IMF and World Bank meetings. Now, earlier I spoke to Leonard Doyle, a spokesperson for the International Organization for Migration.
Well, I think it's really important to note that migrants are, officially recognized by the IMF to be bringing approximately 3 times the economic benefit of bilateral aid to the developing world. So about 600 billion in a given year. These are obviously rough estimates, but it's perfectly clear that if only by that rather inadequate measure, we can see that there's clearly a benefit on the development side. And of course, migrants play an enormous role in their societies that host them. They bring energy, they bring skills, they bring, a work ethic beyond belief. So I think there's little doubt that migrants can enormously benefit the host countries.
Well, there has been a rising anti-immigration sentiment in Europe over the past few years. So how concerned should we be, though, economically about this rising anti-immigrant sentiment in Europe and the United States?
Well, I think you put your finger on it. I mean, the point is that this politicized race to the bottom, gutter journalism, which attacks migrants, it's not new. It's been happening for at least 100 years. I mean, this was the yellow journalism of the United States at the beginning of the last century, blaming the last crowd in for the problems of today. So there's nothing new about it, but I think we should be bigger than that. We should recognize not just that it is wrong, but it is very, very dangerous. I mean, to a large extent, we can probably blame the problems that we're seeing in Brexit. We can see many of the problems that we're seeing in the politics of Europe, the drift to the extreme right, the hostility towards migration, which is self-defeating in the end, given the huge economic benefits that they bring. Now, this is not to be naive and say that there are not problems with migration, in particular with irregular or what people call illegal migration. So that's why we at the UN Agency for Migration advocate for managed migration. It needs to be managed, and in that way it brings a benefit to society.
The European Union, though, has been grappling with how to address this whole question of migration from other countries. So just how much will the IMF and the World Bank be focusing on mass migration during their spring sessions?
Well, I think the focus is increasingly turning that way. It's become a reality. It's jumped up the news agenda. It dominates every headline. Turn on any international news service any day of the week, and the chances are that one of the top stories, if not the top story, will refer to migration. It could be a report on the French political scene with Marine Le Pen saying today that she's going to try and keep out all migrants for the time being, or it could be something describing the rescue of 9,000 irregular migrants this weekend alone in the Mediterranean, and on, and in every part of the world. So it's not restricted to Europe by any means. So I think insofar as the World Bank and the IMF are relevant, well, they will be speaking to the relevant issues of the day, and migration is that very issue.
Leonard Doyle there of the International Organization for Migration. And we'll certainly be keeping an eye on those IMF and World Bank meetings as well as their outcomes later this week. Rachel?
All right.